this thought process. Like there's only one way to really reach people who are lost. But then there's that healthy, like that's,
Yeah.
there is methods that work. Not all methods are the methods that are probably for people, every single person. It's not like a one size fits all,
Yeah.
capsule or shoe. But I do think that, again, I do agree. Like it's when we start talking about like a healthy mix, a healthy medium of like this is not wrong, but this is also not wrong, you know. But there is a definite line where it's like this is bad,
Yeah.
you know. I think we can all agree there's a definite line that says this is bad, but I think we all want to do. There's a lot of right ways. It's not a gray area. I would just say there's just a lot of avenues, especially when preaching the gospel, especially when sharing about your faith, that it is healthy, that it is good. But just because I'm used to, let's say, like I'm one of those people that I'm just used to throwing scripture at people and like, you know, getting my Bible gun and just getting ready to shotgun somebody in the face with every scripture
Yeah.
that I can think of to mind. Like just because I'm used to that from other Christian sources that I received that from in the past
Mm.
or that are doing it currently doesn't mean that that person specifically has to be doing it that way. And it's been a journey just because
Yeah.
I got to be a part of Love Thy Nerd back in the day. Went to a land um, right after my missionary trip, and I got to see something different in the gaming community because I like
Mm.
people talking about like Jesus Otaku and um, branching into touching like even tabletop games Christianity. Like I didn't even know that
Yeah.
was a thing. I would have never thought of that, but it was really great to create a space for people like that. I know they transitioned into LTN. I'm not sure if Game Church is still around, but then you have people as well
Game Church
on.
isn't still around. You need to, because I got to meet all those guys, the guys that founded Game Church. That was a huge thing with like, so because Jate and Bubba were the two guys that were
Mhm.
like kind of the leads that were I think they were running against each other in like this like game thing, like in game to be like the president or something of. I don't even know that I fully understand it, but I got to meet Jay and Bubba at Cincinnati, at the at Megazord,
Yeah.
and so Bubba was a huge part of Game Church, which I didn't even know you were that linked with Game Church. That's cool because like that's a story that's like way off in the distance that I wasn't a part of that I didn't know, and I think that was even a few years before like I came onto the space. But like I didn't really bump into. 'Cause eventually, there's a trail that leads from that community to like Susie has his own thing over here, and I didn't even bump into Susie until like 2020. And
Yeah.
so, but Game Church, so Jate and Bubba, um, Jate founded Love Clan, and then Bubba founded Love Thy Nerd, and then that's where Game Church was kind of like the original concept. It seems.
No, yeah, I got to meet them both in person. I also got to meet people like Chris and I believe it's Mike that helped like kind of create the idea and almost like license that
Huh.
style of uh, I would say like the style of community towards uh, reaching the gaming community. So I got to go to
Yeah.
that because I was like literally I'm when I said I was like desperately like I just wanted to do everything to the glory of the Lord. I was
Yeah.
searching everywhere, and when I was trying to search Christian gaming, I ended up running into Game Church, and but not that I couldn't find people in there. I just was a different. It was a different mission, different things in mind. It was more so of bringing people together and uniting people over common interests that regarded all styles, all variations of gaming, all variations of hobby. Like, well,
Yeah.
I would say like nerd culture, right? And that was great. That was great for me to know that there's something out here that can reach people that I just wasn't thinking of. I'm thinking of like high level athletes in the esports space, like
Yeah.
penetrating this bubble that's been hard to penetrate. Ooh.
Which like we align in that way, and like so, I'm gonna read this verse that is exactly to your point that ties in what you're saying with. It's First Corinthians 9:20 through 22. It's NASB for those that are theology nerds. But Paul, he's talking here, and he says, "To the Jews, I became as a Jew, so that I might gain Jews. To those who were under the law, I became as one under the law, though not being under the law myself, so that I might gain those who were under the law." I know that sounds like super confusing, but what he's talking about is like we aren't technically under the law whenever we become Christians. We're freed because of Christ. Now we still abide by the law, but it's not what saves us. We aren't saved by the law. So he's talking about the Jews because they're under the law. And so
Mhm.
he became like a Jew to reach the Jewish people. And then after that, to make it less complicated, he says, For those who are without the law, I became as one without the law, though not being without the law of God, but under the law of Christ, so that I might gain those who are without the law. So the Gentiles is who he's referring to.
Hmm.
To the weak, I became weak, that I might gain the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that I may by all means save some. And
Hmm.
so he's pointing out the nuance in sharing the gospel and reaching different people groups. And there's a level of like, Paul was Jewish and he was a Roman citizen, and God called him to reach both of those people groups at different times.
Hmm.
And there's a level of like, Cha-ching's really cracked at Call of Duty, and those are the people that before he was a believer, like I would imagine before you were a believer, at least before I was a believer, that's what I got really good at, was being cracked at video games. And those are people that God's brought me back to reach. Those are my people to go and minister to. So to the cracked out Call of Duty players, I became a cracked out Call of Duty player. To the nerd culture, I became a nerd to reach those so that I might save some. And at Cincinnati, what we did was we went through this like leadership training that St. Bear put together, and their team there with Lux Digital Church. And our goal was to identify like we have our calling
Hmm.
and the workplace or the place there's a people group that calling like applies to. So each person has like their own calling and a different people group that they're gifted at or talented at to be able to reach with their gifts that God has given them. And that might only be for like a season. Maybe you're only called to reach the cool kids or the Call of Duty kids or the quirky kids or the athletes or the nerd culture for a season. And so like that's okay, absolutely. And so I wish you were there at Cincinnati, man, because like you hit the nail right on the head. Like that's what we need in the Christian content
Yeah.
space is like we don't need people saying like, oh, you only need to reach the cool kids. No, we need
Mm.
people saying like this person's gifted at reaching these people. Let's let him work out of his own talents and the ways that God has trained him up, and let's come alongside that person.
Yeah.
And I hate the lane wordage that people use in like the rap scene, but like stay in your lane and that's okay, you know. And maybe your lane will cross over into somebody else's for a season and you'll
Hmm.
work together. Maybe you'll be like Paul and Timothy or Paul and Barnabas or Paul and Peter, and you'll work together at different parts in the race, in the journey. And we need more of that.
Yeah.
And right now it's like my way or the highway.
What's going on, guys? If you guys enjoyed the content, head over to our Patreon where you can unlock the full conversation and have exclusive access to every single podcast that we recorded live for only $5 a month. Get yourself some nice discounts for Cha-Ching Apparel, which is our merch shop. On top of that, you guys get an exclusive Patreon member only section unlocked in our Discord. With your guys' support, you help us continue being able to redefine value for human impact and get content like this in front of individuals who need it the most. As well, you help us be able to encourage every single person to work on their physical health, mental health, relational health, spiritual health, and financial health. I appreciate the support, guys. I'll catch you on my next one.